Alright, so now we're going to start on the other parts. Just a quick mention, thanks to Jim Deadman over at Solog Plastic Hubs. Here's his card. He has a YouTube channel, which you can find up in the cards, up in the right hand corner, for giving me this spill-proof oil cup. So it has a nice funnel for you to be able to dab your oil brush off, and also if you tip it over, no oil comes out, or you might get a little drip or whatever's built up in here, but it's not pouring out like crazy. So for me, who's usually a clumsy bastard, it's going to work out great. Okay, so now the next piece that we're going to make is that banjo fitting that goes on the pedal piece. So what these are in real life is basically a fluid transfer device, usually a hydraulic fitting, something high pressure. And what it consists of is a body, a square body with a port for a hose, and a bolt that will go through that hole, and the bolt body is actually hollow, so it'll allow the fluid to go in here, transfer it to the inside of the bolt, and down into whatever fitting it's screwed into. I'll give you the part number and everything on this stuff for the real one in the next video, and they're no longer made. The new ones look, well, this style is no longer made. The new ones look completely different. They're made out of plastic. You can find replica ones of these online here and there. I've actually found a real one, and I think it was like 50, 60 bucks, so that's a little ridiculous. So what we're going to do is, more or less, this is a 3/8 square body. If you have a piece of 3/8 square stock lying around, great, but I don't. So we're going to be using a piece of 1/2-inch brass rod, and we're going to turn this diameter down here, poke a 5/32 hole in there. That will hold the hose. And this bolt here that I found at the hardware store, it's a 1024 bolt, and it pretty much approximates exactly what the other one looks like. And I'll show you a quick picture of what the whole device looks like here. Alright, so the only difference between that and this that I can really tell is that this has a little ridge around the outside of the head, and we'll just shave that off. So right now what we're going to do is turn down this outside edge here. And let me just measure this to get an idea. Obviously we're doing 5/32 in the middle of it. This outside round here, well, this is 240, so we'll do 1/4 inch. So we're going to turn piece down a 1/4 inch, and we're going to go by about 100 thousandths or so in there. It just still looks good. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we'll just go ahead and do that. I'm just going to face it off real quick. And then I'm just going to feed this by hand here. Actually, what I'm better off doing is, to get a nice square edge, is just using a parting blade and going the length of the parting blade. That should look pretty good. So I just need to bring this in to here, tighten down, and that's what we're going to use. Obviously we're a little bit off there, but not a big thing. Just going by eyeball and see where we are right now. We are at 310. That should be about a 1/4 inch there. And I'm getting 260, so that's good enough. Okay, this doesn't need to be deep, so we'll just spot it. plenty deep there. Okay, so I have my piece in my square collet block here. I have the cutter almost touching. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring the table up just until we touch this piece that's going to be my 0. So we're going to take our 3/8 that we want. We're going to subtract that from the 1/2 inch that this is. I'm going to divide that by 2, and that'll give us the depth of each side, which is like 62.5 thousandths. We're just going to round up to 65 because it doesn't have to be perfect, and 65 is a little bit easier to get on the dial. And we're just going to make a flat and index it, make a flat, do that 4 times. This mill has a little bit of a growl to it, so you may not hear me over the drill. So, there's our 0. And there is our square piece. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back into the lathe, and we're going to break this edge and these outside edges, and we're going to pot it off. And one thing I forgot to do is before I pot this off, I got to drill the hole in it for the bolt. So it's just going to be clearance hole for 1024 screw. So what we got to do is find, like we did last time, find the center of this, and then we're going to come in 850 thousandths off the end of this tit here. So I've already deburred these 2 edges, and we're good to go. Divide that by 2. And then we're going to come in off this edge and go in 950 thousandths. Do an idiot eyeball check. That looks like it's right in the center. And put our drill bit right through. And there that is. Now we can go over to the lathe and part that piece off. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to come in and just break this edge and then break this sharp corner. So alright, that looks good there. This edge, just hit with the file. Alrighty. Now, we're going to part off our piece. So what we're going to do is basically take plastic one, put the screw through and the screw through here, lay them on top of each other, and I can get this right where I want it, and that looks pretty good right there, not too bad. I'm going to add just a hair more. Alright, that looks good right there. Alrighty. So before I part that completely off, I'm going to get this tool and see if we can get this tool in here. Hopefully I can. Hopefully I left enough room, which I did. And we're just going to break that edge and round that corner. This way here I don't have to get out the 4-jaw and chuck this in the 4-jaw. I can just do that while it's attached to this. And that looks pretty good there. And there is our pot. I'll just file this little guy off. And there you go. That little tit is off of there. So now, okay, so swapped my ER set for my 3C set here because I have a 3/16 collet that should be able to close down enough to grab this. The reason why you want to use a collet on the screw is because it won't damage the threads. So what I'm hoping is that this will close down enough to hold this in place. I'm going to try it out. See if it does. Okay, looks like it does. And that's not too bad. All I want to do is take off that ridge and then rechamfer the face. You can do it, I mean I could do it on a bench with a file, but I have a little more control over it when it's in the lathe here. So more or less, gotta move my we go. That's all I wanted to do is get rid of that outside edge, a little ridge, and then we're going to rechamfer that outside corner. And that looks pretty good there. And there it is, nicely deburred and chamfered. So I didn't run the file over this outside edge, this squared edge, while it was running, because I didn't want the file to bounce and me to dig into one of these more than the other. It's a lot easier for me to do that on the bench. And then just broke that edge in there. And then that's it. Okay, so now I have these fittings, and this hole in here is too small. This needs to be 5/32. So all we're going to do is take a 3/8 collet, and hopefully this will squish down enough to catch that. But we need to figure out the orientation in here. So what we're going to do is, let's get this collet started in here. If this doesn't work, I could put the ER back in and use that because that has a little bit of a wider range. But what we're going to do is, what I have here is a gauge pin that fits super snug right on that bore. So we're going to put that lightly in the chuck, and we're going to push that in place there, and then we're going to tighten down our collet, and hopefully, if all goes according to plan, that does not squish down small enough. Alright, so I'm going to have to put my ER in there. Okay, let's give this a shot. Hopefully I can get this to squish down small enough. Alright, see how that looks like. There you go. That's not half bad. Okay, so let's get our 5/32 drill bit. Make sure I got the right one. And just drill that sucker out. Here's the tubing. There we go, and that fits in there nice. Doesn't have to be anything crazy because it's not holding any pressure, so I can just super glue this right in there. As long as it fits in, it gives me something to attach to. So we'll just do the other one there. And all these do is you can kind of get something to lever in there. Get a screwdriver or something in here, and you should be able to just pop that little grommet out. So we'll do this one and then we're done. Alright, one last thing I forgot to mention we need to do, and the back of these fittings here is 1/8 inch NPT, so we need to make a nut. So I was just going to buy one, but I kind of was scrambling through my box and I found this piece of hex stock here, so we're just going to make them. I think I need 1, 2, 3. I need 3. 1 for this and 2 for 2 other fittings, which we'll show later. I'm just going to make 4 out of this. So what we're going to do is just come in here and drill, and then we'll tap. Now it is an MPT tap, so the tap is tapered. We'll go about halfway up, part it off, halfway up, part it off. So in other words, we can't just tap all the way through and part. We're going to have to tap each one individually. But just gauging this here, we'll say each nut will be about 200 thousandths in width. Should work out pretty good. So what we're going to do right now is we're just going to come in here and face this sucker off. Okay, none of this needs to be super fancy, so we're just going to part that off. Get a center drill in there. And we're making 4 of these at 200,000, so 2, 4, 6, 8. We're gonna go. I'm gonna go about 1.5 inches in on the drill, and our drill is gonna be a letter Q. Okay, there's 1.5 inches. Okay, so I'm just going to put my tap in my tailstock here. And we're just going to go by hand and start this. Just turning the machine by hand. And we can finish that rest by hand. Alrighty, so we're going to come in. I'll call that about 200 thousandths or so. Let me grab a scale. Doesn't have to be crazy exact as long as we're in the realm. That looks pretty good there. Right about there, we're going to lock it down. So we're going to come in. We're going to stop there. We're going to change out our tool for when we use the chamfer. And what we're going to do is come in here, right in the center, and we can chamfer both those edges at the same time. So just like that. Go ahead and put our potting blade back in. Come into the edge. And there is our finished nut. Okay, I just quickly went over to the drill press to deburr that edge, and there's our nut. Okay, just needs a 3 here, just to show you how consistent you can be just by eyeball. So we got, let me measure. About 210 thousandths there. That's 1. We got almost 200, 199 on that. There's 2. And we call that 195. So they're all within 15 thousandths. And they're all within 10 thousandths of our goal, and that was just by using a scale and an eyeball. So, and you can kind of see the chamfers. Let me get them all together. The consistency of them there, they're pretty close. I'm trying to get them all lined up here. Hang on. There we go. And again, not measuring anything, just using the eyeball. You can see those chamfers there are pretty close. So there you go. Those are the 3 nuts we'll be using.